to New Zealand comes with many challenges. One of those challenges is, what happens if I get offered a job in New Zealand and it's not the place that I've got my heart set on? Well, this episode is for you if you have those thoughts. You're about to meet Adam and his family. Adam moved from a huge city in the USA to Taranaki, New Plymouth. He stayed here for a couple of years and then circumstances changed and he had to move to Auckland.
We were renting 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, maybe 120 square meters. Our rent was $6.55 a week. By comparison, if you want to talk about our living situation now.
That's what I was going to say, was Auckland is renowned for being the most expensive place to live in New Zealand. How was that?
This episode is for you if you have those same thoughts about what happens if I don't like where I'm living when I get to New Zealand. You're going to love this episode. So sit back and enjoy Adam's story.
NZAhead, coming to you from Taranaki, New Zealand. Adam, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so thrilled to have you back. Your second time on.
I know. Thank you for having me. It's a delight to talk to you as always.
Oh, and I am so excited because you have done something that we're always telling people they can do, but actually you're the first person I've ever spoken to that actually has done it. So I'm referring to, once you move to New Zealand, moving from where you set up your base to another part of the country because for various reasons you wanted to move. So can you just tell us, before we dive into that and you tell us what life looks like now you've made a move across the other side of the country, for those who didn't catch our first show where we talked about the healthcare system, could you just say who you are and where you came from and how long you've been in New Zealand?
Sure. My name is Adam. I migrated here with my wife and my little girl in July of 2022. My wife is a clinical pharmacist at the hospital pharmacist, and so she was hired for a job at the Taranaki base hospital running the emergency department pharmacy. And that's what brought us over here. There are these social issues and various things that were happening in the US that were the impetus for us coming to New Zealand in the first place, but that's a whole other podcast. So we settled in. Our little girl's, she was 2.5 when we came over, and she started going to kindy and started establishing her friendships. And Taranaki is a wonderful place to have young children because it's safe. There's beautiful landscapes, beautiful nature. She loved going to the milk machine and pushing the button at the Beach Road Dairy.
Yeah.
It's just such a wonderful place for children to grow up, I think. But I think there were also greater opportunities for my wife in particular in Auckland. She got a job offer at a much bigger hospital, a more robust position with a lot more support. And I think that's been really important for her, both personally and professionally. And so we're along for the ride. And Meme is 4 now, and she's established at a new kindy, and she's making new friends. And she still does talk about her friends back in Taranaki and wants to see them. We've tried a few Zoom calls, but it tends to be just the kids staring at each other for a while, and I just end up talking to the parents.
Yeah. So before we go any further, when you joined our community, our NZAhead community, and I found out you were moving to New Plymouth, I'm always really excited when members are moving to because obviously that's where we live, is in New Plymouth, Taranaki. And you moved over here and we took great joy in telling you all the things. Oh yeah, you should do this, you should do that. And you set up and we met up with you, didn't we, a couple of times. And I was just really happy for you that you were living here because, like you say, New Plymouth is a great place to raise a family. We had our kids here. It's brilliant. Obviously, I'm biased because I live here. But then you started saying that there were other things that you were missing about a bigger city. And I know we had this great conversation, me and you, about Hamilton, because we were going to Hamilton one time and you were telling me all the good restaurants to eat up there, all the Chinese food and things like that. And it was just, and I could tell, and I didn't say anything at the time, but I thought, I wonder if this is going to be enough for you. I wonder if little old New Plymouth is going to be enough for you and Eva. And so when you said, And it was still a shock when you said to me, guess what, we're moving to Auckland. I thought, yeah, it wasn't a massive shock. And what I want to talk to you today is like how easy it was to move to Auckland. If you don't mind sharing your personal reasons why you wanted to move to Auckland in the first place. And hopefully I haven't given too much away there. And then we're going to just discuss like the difference in the cost and the way of life in Auckland and the services and how May has settled in. Because Adam, I think this is so important because like I said right at the beginning of the show, people will say, oh, I've got a job offer and it's in this city, but I don't really want to live there. And we're always saying, just take it for a year or 2 years and then just move. And they're like, really? But that's a major move. And you've just done that. So I'm just so excited to jump in. So first of all, would you mind sharing, was there anything like personal that you just thought, that's why we would like to spread our wings a little bit and move out of Taranaki to go to a big city?
Eva's job offer was really the critical factor in all this. So everything else fell into place around that. Originally, when we came over, I have a history of working in the entertainment industry and in publicity and advertising. There's not much of that work going on in New Plymouth. So I decided to change career paths to become a licensed immigration advisor, found an advisor, started working for her, and then this job came up and suddenly we're moving to Auckland where there probably are jobs in entertainment and publicity and advertising that I could have found. So everything just got changed up. But at the same time, it's fine. We were a bit intimidated at first, but we have lived in large US cities before. Eva and I lived in Los Angeles. It's where I met Eva. She's from Taiwan originally. I lived in Los Angeles for 18 years. After that, we lived in Portland, Oregon for about 6 or 7 years, which is a much smaller city, but still a decent sized American city. And coming to New Plymouth was a breath of fresh air because we felt like, in a way, we were escaping a lot of the problems of the big city, that the crime and homelessness and gun violence and that sort of thing. And then we arrived in Auckland and a bit intimidated. People talk about all of those things. If you watch the news in New Zealand, they love talking about what a terrible place Auckland is.
Oh.
And it's a bit intimidating, especially people in Taranaki telling us, oh, you're moving up to the big smoke, where the traffic is terrible. Now, and I have to tell you,
You are here because you love New Zealand.
You might be moving to New Zealand,
Living in New Zealand, or you might just spend your days dreaming of visiting this gorgeous country. Because we love New Zealand as much as you do, we have compiled a short and very unique 5-day video series showcasing life in New Zealand, what it's really like. These videos are real, they are exclusive, and best of all, they're absolutely free. So if you would like to view New Zealand from the inside out and find out what life is really like down here, sign up now, and every day for 5 days we will send you a personal 3-minute video showcasing some brilliant aspect of life in New Zealand. You are gonna love it. Go to www.itsadrama.com/ILoveNZ. We can't wait to share those videos with you. Okay, let's get back on with the show.
now, and I have to tell you, we've been delightfully surprised at how none of that really matches our experience being here now for about 5 months. It's definitely a bigger, busier city, but what we're finding is that the local suburb that we live in, all of our needs are generally met here. So we're actually driving less than we were in New Plymouth to get around. So we're not really spending the time that we spend in traffic is more sort of the optional stuff that we do on the weekends when we go out to the zoo or we go somewhere further afield. But almost everything that we do is a 5 to 10 minute drive away from our house. Not to mention there's a train station just a few minutes away as well. So Eva takes the train to work, which is a huge stress reliever for her. She's not crazy about driving, particularly in traffic. And she can just zone out on the train. It's a 20-minute ride to drops her off directly in front of the hospital. That's a huge benefit. And the MA school is a 5-minute drive, 10 minutes max with traffic. the supermarket, this countdown is 5 minutes away. New World is about 8 minutes away. There's a magnificent, it's like probably the Auckland equivalent of Faro in New Plymouth, this sort of fancy Mediterranean store. Faro is also about 8 to 10 minutes away. The warehouse is in that same area. Everything that we have is either as close or closer than it was when we lived in New Plymouth. So that's been a really wonderful surprise. And add into the mix the quality. Again, I mentioned that Eva's from Taiwan.
Yep.
And we have in our little neighborhoods no less than a dozen different Asian restaurants, 6 or 7 just different regional cooking styles from China. And after a long, hard day at work, coming home to a bowl of Yunnan Mishan rice noodles, it goes a long way in soothing her soul. All of that is really wonderful. Down at the local library, they have a little section off to the left, a couple of rooms with ping pong tables, and there's always older Chinese people playing ping pong every time I go in there with May. It just makes me happy to see the diversity of our community and the shops. There's a little Turkish supermarket, and there's a Sri Lankan restaurant, and Malaysian and Philippine, and this is just in our little village, just 5 minutes away from where we live. And it's all of that. These are for us the upsides. Not to mention, of course, there's an endless range of things to do, free and low cost. I've been talking a lot, so I'll stop now and let you ask me a few more questions. But in general, those are the upsides of having moved here.
Do you know what? I love it because you seem so happy. I can just feel it coming through the screen. You're just so happy. And were you a bit bored in New Plymouth, Adam? Was it a bit boring for you?
We certainly, especially with a young child, there are those days, anyone who lives there will know, those rainy days through the long winters. There's the people, we go to the library. The library was always fun. We'd walk around the Center City shopping mall.
That takes about 2 minutes, doesn't it?
And
And then what did you do?
And then we started scrolling through Google to see what else we could find. Yeah, but we did have pretty limited options. And when you're trying to entertain a young child, you're always looking for new options.
Yeah.
So I would say that those were the most challenging times. Rainy days or long periods of rainy days when we couldn't really go to the playgrounds, and we would go to the library, the kids area in the library over and over. Or the museum.
You've said the library 3 times now. I don't think of something else.
There's a great regional museum down in Hawara. It's like a local guy just decided to make the whalers and traders. I don't know if you've been on that, but he was inspired, I think, by Pirates of the Caribbean in Disneyland and just built his own, which is a historical reenactment of the whalers and traders of Taranaki and New Plymouth.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. That's something you can do. It takes an hour each way, and then you ride on the boat.
So that's one Sunday sorted then.
That's right. Yeah.
Listen, Adam, if you're listening to this and you're thinking of moving to New Plymouth, I've been here 15 years. I love the place, but it's okay that it's not the place for everyone, isn't it? And I just think, like I say, your food culture with Eva coming from Taiwan, no wonder you would have just, you probably longed for it. And now you're in Auckland and it's all around you and it's just feeding your soul. And that's wonderful to see. And we're joking. It's not a go at New Plymouth. I can't have a go on my hometown, can I? Stamping on my own turf here, but it's great. It's fantastic to see that you have gone to Auckland and you're loving it. It's brilliant.
The fears that we had about big city life, I think they don't really translate here. We've lived in big American cities, and the problems, I think, is particularly if you listen to Kiwis who only really have Auckland as a frame of reference and haven't lived internationally, particularly in America. It just seems the traffic to me compared with LA is very manageable. The crime isn't good anywhere, but in comparison to what we experienced in LA and in Portland, homelessness, crime, gun violence, it's either nothing or minimal in comparison to our experience living cities in America. So for us, Auckland just feels like a breeze. We're not, Kiwis might feel differently because they have different lived experiences. But for us coming from America, it's no problem. It's no problem.
Yeah.
Which is not to say certainly Auckland has very real problems, and I don't mean to dismiss that. But we still see homeless people on the street occasionally when we're in the CBD. What we don't see are miles long rows of tents on the sidewalks, the footpaths, people just living in camper vans. Again, we don't see the problems to the extent that we experienced them when we were in the US. We've only been here 5 months. I'm by no means an expert on the social problems in Auckland, but again, we don't have the feeling we would feel when I would push Meme around in her stroller, we would go through parks on our way to do some errands, and we would have to sometimes go by these big encampments, and there would be used hypodermic needles just thrown on the paths, and it's rubbish just strewn around. And it's such a difficult situation to be in from all aspects, because we certainly have compassion and sympathy for what people are going through, but we also have a need to preserve our own feeling of security and safety. Yeah. And we just didn't feel that particularly with a young child to think about first. So we're by no means living in the wealthiest of suburbs. We're in a very sort of immigrant working class neighborhood. But like I said, I just don't see the problems. Eva accidentally left her keys in the front door overnight, and that would have been a disaster in the place where we lived in Portland. Somebody would have tampered. Here, even again, where we are in Auckland, like, it's no problem. Like, I'm not recommending that people leave their keys in the front door, but I'm just saying the extent of the problems, if you're coming from the US, the extent of the problems you're used to experiencing are just not the same intensity. It's according to our experience here.
And thank you for sharing that. And let's just talk about the practical side of it now. So had you bought a house in New Plymouth, or were you just renting?
So we were just renting. We nearly bought a house, which it's a good thing that we didn't. But we were renting for the nearly 2 years that we were there. Okay. It was, what was it? A 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. I think it was about 100, maybe 110, 120 square meters. Our rent was $655 a week.
$655 a week. How many bedrooms?
3 bedrooms.
3 bedrooms.
1 bedroom was very small. It was really 2. They just, I think, split one of the bedrooms into 2 just to call it a 3.
Yeah.
But 2 full bathrooms, 1 with a shower and 1 with a bath. But it was a decent enough space. By comparison, if you want to talk about our living situation now.
That's what I was going to say, was like because Auckland is renowned for being really the most expensive place to live in New Zealand. How was that? Because you were busy getting your immigration license. You were no doubt working towards that. And congratulations, by the way, on getting that. That's fantastic. But how was it? Because you must have seen a massive rise in your outgoings. Did you? Or have you had to drop down the size of your house? Could you just talk about that? How did that look?
Yeah, so it is a really difficult situation. Oh, I don't want to wobble my desk again. It's really difficult. We did buy a house in Auckland. It's about 80 square meters. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, or 1.5, we would say. One's just a little powder room with a toilet, and the other is a full bathroom. But it's about 80 square meters. We do have a detached garage outside, or garage, I should say. I never know how to pronounce that word, but which is what really sold us on the property. Just that we would have that extra storage space outside, because we came from a house. The house we had in Portland was a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom, probably about 180, 190 square meters. That's about 2,400 square feet.
Right.
So we already had to compress our lifestyle to live in New Plymouth. And we were hoping that the house we would buy one day would be able to accommodate our former lifestyle. But sadly, no. We've had to compress even more. And that's been difficult. And it's expensive. Our mortgage is about $1,500 fortnightly. So it's a bit more than what we were paying, about what, 15, so 750. So we're paying about $100 more a week than we were
That's
paying in
not
rent
bad.
in rent in New Plymouth.
Yeah.
But again, the place is much smaller.
Or like, yeah.
But we're in the big city too, and we have all of the big city amenities to go along with it, including, like I said, Eva being able to take the train. There's a bus at the corner that comes every 10 minutes, and it's a 5-minute ride to the train station, and the trains come every 10 minutes during commuter times. These are all the huge benefits of living in the city that we're just paying for it
Yeah.
through our mortgage.
What about groceries and things like that? Is there a difference in prices in Auckland than down here, or?
That's a good question. It's really tight. Eva makes a good salary at the hospital. I'm working part-time because I still take care of May when she's not at school. Even with 1.5 salaries, it's still hard. We're just about breaking even each month. And sometimes we have to dip into savings, and we're trying to make a go of it. Once she's out of kindy, our expenses will go down a bit because she's going to, her kindy is $250 a week. Once she's in primary school, we'll be able to recoup. That'll help quite a bit.
And then when she's a teenager, you can just like quadruple that again. I hope you've got some savings.
But yeah, it is tricky. Petrol is more expensive. In general, it's more expensive than it was in New Plymouth. So there's that. But again, we don't drive as much.
Yeah.
So
you're not driving way down to Howard to go to the museum because
to entertain ourselves.
You can just get on the bus, can't you? We don't have buses in New Plymouth. What are they?
It's very true. Yeah, so sorry, I lost track of the question.
No, we were just saying about the cost, about the living cost.
Yeah. Groceries, if you go to the big supermarkets, I don't notice too much of a difference in the cost of groceries. Certainly if you go to Faro, the fancy Mediterranean place supermarkets, those are more pricey. Oh, there's an app. I don't know. This is very useful. It's called the Grocer app. And it does a free comparison of you just scan the barcode on the product you want or type it in. And yeah, it's great. And you can tick the shops that you want to compare, and it'll give you the current prices at all the supermarkets.
That's fantastic.
And it'll even develop a shopping list for you to tell you how to get the cheapest of all the items you've selected. So it'll say, go to Pack and Save for these 2 items. Go to New World for this item. I don't know if anyone's going to want to actually go through the trouble of that, but
I would.
It's great. But it's great. Definitely. It's great. Yeah. I have no association with the Grocer app. I have no idea who made it, but it's fantastic. Everyone in New Zealand should be using it.
Yeah.
But certainly, so food, of course, is one of the things that's eating out is never inexpensive in New Zealand, in particular, in comparison with the places we used to go to in America. You could go to a little immigrant-run Chinese restaurant and get some xiaolongbao, the soup dumplings, for, I don't know, $6 or $7 for 8 or 10 of them. No, this is back in America. Back in Los Angeles, it was very possible to do that. And here, the same thing will cost maybe $20. Of course, that's inclusive with tax and tip. You have to add that stuff on in America. And of course, there's higher minimum wages that are being paid here, which I'm sure is part of the issue. Yeah, but eating out. Now, having said that, we've pretty much resigned ourselves. Anytime we eat out, we're generally spending at least $75 for the 3 of us. There are some of those little immigrant-run shops that you can go to, restaurants, where it can be $40 or $50 if you order carefully, a couple of plates of noodles and maybe an appetizer of some kind. So in that regard, things can be a little bit more of a bargain than they would be in a smaller town like New Plymouth.
And what was it like for May? What was it like to move a child from her kindy, where she's got all her friends and she just settled in? Because she made that, I know you were worried about making the major move from Portland anyway and coming to New Zealand, and then you just get her settled in and she's just got her friends, and then up again and she's off to Auckland. You must have been, I know what, you're a full-time dad, and I know what parents are going to be thinking about that. But how was that? How did she settle, and how is she now?
she was really adaptable. Of course, every child can be different, but she still talks about her friends. But I mentioned earlier to you, she still talks about her friends, a couple in particular in New Plymouth that she misses. Hi, Norman. Hi, Leonardo. But she's also made some absolutely wonderful friends here at her school. I think it probably also helped because she attended the New Plymouth Montessori school. And one of her teachers, the school that she's in now, one of her teachers trained in or worked at for quite a while. So they were familiar with her old teacher in New Plymouth. And because it's a Montessori curriculum, there's some consistency from school to school.
Right.
So she wasn't completely starting afresh in a completely new environment. She just continued on. They have the same materials, the same learning materials and things. So she was able to continue on in that regard. And so she felt, I think, a bit more comfortable in a similar sort of environment.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if she had just been going to just a public kindy, there wouldn't necessarily be that consistency. There would be all new toys and all new things to play with. And but she's made some really wonderful new friends since she's been here. And that's a huge relief for both Eva and I to see that she's adapted. I just took her to her friend Olivia's house the other day after school, and I hadn't even gotten the bags out of the car, and she's already off and running into the house. Olivia's met her at the door, and they're off and running and playing instantly. So as a parent, it's so good to see that she has that connection already. They're such good friends, and they're going to be continuing on to the same school. So they'll have that relationship hopefully for a long time.
That's lovely. And it's always a relief when our kids settle into school and settle and make friends. What about you and Eva, though? How difficult has it been for you to make friends and to build a community around you? Because I know New Plymouth, it's got that smallness about it, isn't it? And everyone seems to we see each other in the supermarket, and I don't know, it has got that lovely, warm community feel about New Plymouth. And I'm guessing, I might be completely wrong, but I'm guessing Auckland is a lot bigger and spread out. And does it have that? Have you been able to make friends in Auckland?
Yeah, so I think what you're describing, what's the easiest way to describe it? So if Auckland is dozens of little New Plymouths all stuck together, because people tend to operate from within their suburb. And in particular, the school that we're going to is the hub of our social network. Yeah, that Maymay's connected with friends through school, and we've connected with the parents through the school, and it's a natural sort of synergy. Eva has a colleague at work that moved up with her from New Plymouth, so she has that connection also.
Perfect.
Yeah, so she has that sort
Wasn't Marcy, was it?
No, as far as I know, Marcy is still.
Yeah.
No, this was another pharmacist that she worked with.
Oh, having a private conversation about Slack. Yeah, so that's handy then that her friend has moved up. And like you say, you do make friends through school, thankfully, that we have got that with the kids, haven't we? That you make friends with the parents of the children. So that's great. And is there anything else that you're thinking, I am so glad I live in Auckland compared to New Plymouth?
There's so many free things for kids to do, too. There's a website, I think, called Auckland for Kids, appropriately named.
Good name.
And yeah, there's just an endless stream of things, particularly in the summer, that you can do with them. There's this wonderful it's a free nature program that the council puts up. You show up at a local park, and there's a nature guide that teaches the kids things like how to light a fire or how to forage for herbs and plants and berries, and how to make rope out of hemp, and how to and they go, and we went on a little walk around climbing through old trees, and then he fried up some donuts at the end.
Oh, perfect. That was worth going for then.
Yeah, and they do this all throughout the summer at different parks around the city. Right now they're at a free sort of gymnastics for kids out in the park. Yeah, there's just a seemingly endless string of things to do. There's also, of course, there's Rainbow's End, the theme park. Although she's a bit young for it to really make financial sense. It's quite expensive to go there, and she's not tall enough yet to go on any of the fun things. But yeah, there's so many things to do. And of course, that because of the geography of the place, there's so many different playgrounds, and there's just an endless stream. And there's so many in our area in the east part of Auckland. We rarely get out to the west part of Auckland. We tend to go east and central, just because there's so many things to do, and we're parents of a young child, so we're exhausted at the end of the day. We all go to sleep by 9 o'clock.
It sounds like you've got an action-packed life. And like I say, I knew you when you were in New Plymouth, and you just seem really happy. And I'm so happy for you, for all three of you, because you just seem to have found your place. And I think that's important, don't you? When people are thinking of moving to New Zealand, that it's okay if where you move to first off isn't right for you. It's okay to move. It's not, you're living proof of that you can move your family and move right up the other side of the country.
In particular, once you have a resident visa, because if people are coming in with a work visa, they're going to be tied to the particular job in the area that they're in. So that's just putting my immigration advisor hat on for a moment.
Sure,
that's an important distinction to make. But yeah, if you have a resident visa, then it's no problem. You can work anywhere, travel through the country without issue. You can, if you're on a work visa, you can change those things. There's just a little bit more to do.
And I know last time we spoke to you, and you don't have to talk about this if you don't want to, but the last time we spoke to you, our podcast was on the healthcare system, because you need quite a lot of medication here in New Zealand. And we did talk about the differences between what you were getting in New Plymouth compared to what you were getting in Auckland. Would you just like to talk about that? Are you happy to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So I have type 1 diabetes, if people will know from watching the other podcasts that we did. And so I do require quite a decent amount of insulin and oral medications and things like that to keep me going. There's been a massive change since we spoke a year or two ago, that the diabetics will understand that continuous glucose monitors are now funded for type 1 diabetics in New Zealand.
Brilliant.
That's a huge savings, because we were paying about $1,200 every 90 days for those supplies. Yeah, that's a massive change. So thank you to Pharmac for finally funding continuous glucose sensors. It means that basically the rest of my diabetes is funded. I paid nearly nothing for all of my diabetes supplies, including my insulin pump. And anyway, but in terms of how my care has changed since I moved from New Plymouth to Auckland, it's been pretty significant. They made an effort to, there's not a whole lot of transitioning that really happens. I was expecting that they were going to move my notes over from Taranaki to Auckland, but I don't really think that happens. It seems like they do initiate some kind of a transfer, but you're basically starting fresh from the beginning. And everything that happened to begin with in New Plymouth happened in Auckland. I was seen by an endocrinologist, sort of have a conversation. He assessed me for anything I needed. But what he did in addition that didn't happen in Taranaki is he referred me out to quite a number of, he helped direct me to community podiatry. He helped refer me out to see a dietitian or nutritionist to talk about, and this was a nutritionist who was trained in diabetes. So it wasn't just a sort of a general nutrition conversation. And she was quite good. He referred me out to a diabetes nurse practitioner. And as far as I know, I didn't have really any of that happen other than being referred to a nurse practitioner when I was in Taranaki. I don't know how much of that is just a matter of the doctor that I specifically saw, or whether the system in Auckland is just better funded or more robust. I don't really know. But all I know is from a patient perspective, the care that I'm receiving here is a great deal more comprehensive.
That's fantastic.
Which has been great.
I would have thought it would be the opposite. I would think that you'd go to Auckland, and because it was so busy and big, they would have less time for you. So that's really interesting that you should say that.
I think the issue is that in the regional hospitals, it's just harder to find staff. That's why the smaller regional hospitals they're in constant need of qualified healthcare practitioners in all areas.
Mm.
So I think that may be part of the issue, and it's just a guess. I don't know for sure, but yeah, it seems like they're always in need. Qualified healthcare practitioners from the US and elsewhere, we need you.
We didn't mean what we said about the library. There's loads more things to do. Honest.
What we really do is we do miss that the foreshore area by Fitzroy Beach or the East End Reserve. There's that little container cafe, the little French cafe.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so lovely there. I remember the last time we were there just thinking, I can't believe that we live here. It feels like a holiday place.
It does. And I've said that many times. It still feels like we're on holiday. New Plymouth is one in its own. Taranaki is a very special region, and it's very wild. It's very, I love the energy of Taranaki. I really do. But I understand that it's not for everyone. And I don't mean that like you didn't like it, but Eva was given this job offer. She went for it, and it happened that you live in this brilliant city that now you've got all these things, and May's made her friends and all these free things to do. I just think it's fantastic that I love that you made that move, and instead of just thinking, no, here we are and here we stay and that's it, you were just open-minded and you were willing to give it a go. And I just think it's brilliant. I really do. I think it's wonderful, and I'm so happy. Is Eva happy now? And not that she wasn't so before, but I'm just saying, is she happy?
I think so. Yeah. She's in. Yeah. Not to get too political, but after the results of the last U.S. election, we both, I think, feel a great sense of relief that we're here.
Yeah.
If we ever had any doubts, that sort of cemented it in that we made a good decision. So. Yeah.
I'm just glad that you're still in New Zealand. I don't care that you've moved to Auckland, because I know that you're not on our doorstep, but
it's only 4 hours away.
I know, exactly. Yeah. And you were just saying that you're coming down in January, so that's going to be really great. Yeah. So before I let you go, is there anything else that I haven't covered or I haven't mentioned that you would just think, in fact, if there's someone thinking, oh, I've got this job offer and it's in, I don't know, a city that that wasn't our main city, but what advice would you give them?
New Zealand is a relatively small country, and it's not that expensive. It's expensive to fly, but it's not that hard to get around. And I don't want to dismiss this. Anytime you move, particularly if you're getting older, it becomes less and less convenient. But I think that there are so many opportunities. It shouldn't stop. Having a good opportunity in a different place shouldn't stop you from moving, regardless of your age. And like I said, we're really happy that we're here, and we're really happy we're still close enough to be able to drive in a day to come back and visit Taranaki.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Auckland's lucky to have you, Adam. They really are. You've joined our Auckland. I noticed that you've moved out of the Taranaki Slack chat now, and you've moved up to Auckland. Gone up the ladder now.
Got a little more to say.
Yes.
Got a little more to say about Auckland now. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your story. Thank you for everything you do in the community. You're just an absolute treasure over there. We love having you. And like I say, I'm just so happy that you made that move, and you're a testament to heaving up and thinking, great, let's just go somewhere else, and let's go, like you say, where the offer is, and not being scared to do that, and not being intimidated by all the costs and the move, and just doing it, and just doing it well. I just want to say thank you to you for that.
Thanks, Liz. And thanks for everything that you do.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
It's much needed.
Thank you, Adam. Mm-hmm. Okay, darling. And I'll speak to you next time on podcast number 3.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye, Liz.
Bye.
I really hope you enjoyed that show as much as I enjoyed recording it. If you're moving to New Zealand and you are interested in joining the Slack group, the private community group that we raved about and talked about on today's show, then you need to head over and get our free 5-day video guide. This is a video guide that sends you a video every day for 5 days, sharing some aspect of what life in New Zealand is like. It's absolutely free. And then when you get to the 5th day, you will be given the option of whether or not you want to join the private community, the one that we talked about. It's a fabulous, fabulous resource. I don't need to say anything more because you've already heard all about it. Go over, take the free 5-day video guide, get to day 5, and then you can decide whether or not you'd like to be a member and join our private community along with me and Brian and all those other fabulous people that are walking along the same path as you and making the move to New Zealand. So head on over to www.nzahead.com/free. Head on over to www.nzahead.com/free and get your free 5-day video guide. Get to day 5 and then you decide if you want to come and join us in our private membership group. I hope to see you on the other side. Teaching in New Zealand is a whole different ballgame than teaching in the USA. The reason we know that is because today we interviewed Jo. Jo is American. She moved to New Zealand a few years ago and she is now a teacher in New Zealand. In today's episode, Jo tells us everything there is to know about being a teacher in New Zealand, how it compares to the USA, but also, really importantly, if you're moving to New Zealand with kids, or even if you live in New Zealand with kids and you want to know what goes on in the classroom, what goes on with your kids 6 hours a day, then you're going to love this episode.
But legally, if you are 5 years old, you're entitled to start school on your birthday in New Zealand, which is quite different because in the States, the child has to be 5 before they start, typically in August or September.
So, but what I've always wanted to know, Jo, well, 2 things. I wonder what it's like for a kid on its 5th birthday when he wakes up and goes, "You're 5 today? Come on, off to school then." No cake for you today, not till after school.
So let's jump into the show and get to know more about teaching in New Zealand.